Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We keep hearing all this stuff about the economy lately, right? It's kind of hard to get a clear picture of what's actually going on.
Yeah, definitely a lot of mixed signals out there.
Totally. So today we're going to try to make sense of it all by taking a deep dive into this YouTube video from Reventure Consulting. They do a breakdown of Walmart's latest financial report, and, well, let's just say it's pretty eye-opening.
Interesting choice. I'm curious to see what they found.
Yeah, so they start off by pointing out something that seems kind of counterintuitive. Walmart is like seriously crushing it right now, like exceeding all their revenue expectations.
Hmm. On the surface, that sounds like a good thing.
Right. Like, woohoo, economy's booming, everything's great, but maybe not so fast.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What's the catch?
Well, the video digs into the data and finds that more and more like middle and high income shoppers are going to Walmart for their groceries these days.
Oh, wow. So instead of like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, even those folks are heading to Walmart? That's pretty telling.
Right. It's like, what's going on here?
It all comes down to this thing called the trade down effect. Basically, with prices going up everywhere, people who used to shop at those fancier places are now like, okay, I need to save some money. So they're trading down to more budget-friendly options like Walmart.
Makes sense. So it's not just folks on a tight budget anymore. Even people who were doing pretty well before
Yeah.
are feeling the squeeze.
Exactly. And the thing is, this trade down effect isn't just happening with groceries, you know? We're seeing it across different industries, which suggests that maybe consumer confidence isn't as strong as some people think.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And the video actually does this side-by-side price comparison of basic grocery items at Walmart versus Publix, another big supermarket chain. Let me tell you, the differences were shocking.
Really? Give me some examples. What kind of price gaps are we talking about?
Okay, so like soup, eggs, bread, even steak. Walmart was consistently cheaper sometimes by a LOT. Like a loaf of bread at Publix was like $4, and at Walmart it was $1.
Wow, that's a huge difference, especially for families trying to, make ends meet.
Right. It really highlights the pressure people are under. Even if you were used to shopping at, more expensive places, those prices at Walmart are hard to ignore.
Yeah, no kidding. It makes you wonder how those other stores are even staying in business.
That's what I was thinking. So the video goes on to explain how Walmart manages to keep their prices so low. And well, it turns out they have a ton of power over their suppliers.
Ah, so that they can basically force suppliers to lower prices if they want to stay on the shelves.
Exactly. It's like Walmart's size gives them this incredible leverage that impacts the whole industry.
Yeah, it's a classic example of, how market dominance can affect pricing strategies. And, there's two sides to this. On one hand, it's great for consumers because it keeps prices down, especially during times like these. But on the other hand, it can be tough on suppliers and smaller businesses who just can't compete with Walmart's pricing power.
Right. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Low prices are great,
Yeah.
but not if they come at the expense of fair competition.
Absolutely. And speaking of competition, the video brings up this interesting twist. While Walmart is doing amazing, Dollar Tree, which you'd think would be thriving in this environment, is actually seeing their revenues decline?
Wait, really? Even Dollar Tree can't keep up with Walmart's prices.
Apparently not. It shows that even within the discount market, there are winners and losers, and it all comes down to pricing strategy.
It's like even among those looking for deals, some people prioritize extreme value, even if it means, sacrificing a bit of quality or variety.
Right, and others might still be drawn to that, like, fixed, predictable price point that Dollar Tree offers, two different approaches to the same budget-conscious consumer.
Interesting. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore. But
Yeah.
okay, this is where the video starts to get a little, well, unnerving because it draws some parallels between what's happening now and what happened right before the 2008 financial crisis.
Hold on, you're not talking about another housing bubble, are you? Because those Florida real estate prices we were talking about earlier.
Well, that's part of it,
Yep.
but there's more. The video points to a bunch of warning signs, like declining consumer sentiment, people feeling less optimistic about the economy, shrinking savings rates, and a spike in credit card delinquencies, all things that were also happening before the 2008 crash.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're saying history might be repeating itself.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's definitely something to pay attention to, right? Especially with the housing market being such a wild card these days.
No argument there. And speaking of housing, the video takes a deep dive into the Florida market specifically, where things are, well, let's just say interesting.
Yeah, interesting is one way to put it. The video mentions that while prices have come down a bit from their peak, they're still ridiculously high compared to, like, historical norms.
Yeah, and they show this one example that really drives the point home. It's a two-bedroom, one-bathroom house in Pinellas Park, Florida, listed for $310,000. But get this, the creator estimates that this same house probably sold for like 50 to 60 grand at the bottom of the last housing crash.
Whoa. Are you serious? That's a crazy jump.
It is. And it all goes back to affordability.
Yeah.
The video points out that even with this slight dip in prices, it's still incredibly difficult for most people to buy a home in Florida.
Yeah, especially with interest rates still being so high. It's like a perfect storm.
Exactly. And this issue isn't just limited to Florida. We're seeing affordability challenges in housing markets all over the country, which, raises concerns about a potential bubble and the wider implications for the economy.
Okay, so let me just recap here. We've got Walmart doing great, but maybe for the wrong reasons. We've got this trade-down effect showing that people are feeling the pinch, even if they're not saying it out loud. And then there's the housing market, which seems like it's teetering on a cliff. Honestly, it's a lot to digest.
It is. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To break it all down and help you understand what it all means for you.
I'm glad you're here to help me make sense of all this.
And trust me, it gets even more interesting. Before we went to break, we were talking about how crazy expensive houses have become in Florida. Yeah, it really does make you wonder if things are getting a little out of control everywhere, not just in Florida.
Right. It's like, how much higher can these prices actually go?
Well, the video actually dives into this tool that can help us understand affordability a little bit better. It's called the salary needed to afford a house.
Okay, so like how much you actually need to earn to be able to afford a mortgage in a certain area.
Exactly. It takes into account not just the sale price, but also property taxes, insurance, all that stuff. So it gives you a more realistic picture of what you need to be making to live in a particular zip code.
That's actually super helpful. I mean, I know when I was looking at houses, it was always like sticker shock. Like the price seemed okay, but then you add in all those extra costs and it's like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah, it can be really eye-opening. And you know what's really interesting? The video combines the salary data with another metric called the overvaluation rate.
Overvaluation. So like how much higher are prices now compared to what's considered normal?
Exactly. It basically tells you how inflated the market is in a particular area.
Hmm.
So if a house is like 30% overvalued, maybe you think twice before buying there.
Makes sense. It's like having a little extra knowledge to help you navigate this crazy market.
Yeah.
But okay, let's switch gears for a second and go back to Walmart. The video also compares them to some other big companies like Home Depot, McDonald's, and Starbucks. What's the takeaway there?
Well, it shows how different business models can perform during economic downturns. Like Walmart, with its focus on low prices and everyday essentials, tends to be more resilient.
So you're saying people might skip that fancy latte or put off that home renovation project when money's tight, but they'll still need groceries and toothpaste.
Exactly. So while Home Depot might see a dip in sales if the housing market slows down, Walmart is more likely to stay strong because people still need those basic goods.
Right. It's like they're kind of a safe haven for consumers.
And for investors, too, because that stability can make Walmart a safer bet in uncertain times.
I never thought about it from the investor's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, let's be real for a second. All this talk about warning signs and economic parallels to 2008, it's kind of freaking me out. Is another recession, like, inevitable?
I get it. It's natural to feel anxious when you hear these things. But remember, economics isn't like a crystal ball. We can analyze trends, we can study history, but no one can predict the future with 100% certainty.
Okay, so you're saying don't panic, but also be prepared. Like, hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Exactly. And the video does highlight some red flags, like the fact that consumer savings rates are at their lowest point since before the 2008 crash.
Okay, so maybe now's a good time to, revisit that budget and see where I can cut back a little just in case.
It never hurts to be proactive. Another concerning trend is the rise in credit card delinquencies. They've spiked to levels we haven't seen since, yep, you guessed it, the beginning of the 2008 crash.
Oh, that's not good. So more people are struggling to pay their credit card bills, which means they're probably racking up more debt. And with interest rates still going up, that's a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
It can be. High debt levels can make people incredibly vulnerable to economic shocks, whether it's a job loss or unexpected medical bills or, another recession.
Okay, I'm officially stressing out now. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. So the video paints a pretty bleak picture, but it doesn't really offer any solutions. Like, what are we supposed to do with all this information?
That's a great question, and it's something we should all be asking ourselves. The video is meant to be informative, not prescriptive. It's up to each individual to take these insights and apply them to their own lives.
So it's like, here's the economic lay of the land, folks. Now go forth and make your own informed decisions.
Right, and that starts with understanding your own financial situation. Are you feeling the pinch of inflation? Could you handle a sudden job loss or a major unexpected expense?
I think that's a really important point. Even if things are good for you right now, it never hurts to have a plan right.
Absolutely. One of the most important things you can do is build up an emergency fund. Even a small amount saved each month can make a huge difference if you face unexpected challenges.
Okay, that's doable.
Yeah.
But what if you're already feeling financially stretched? Where do you even begin?
There are resources out there. Look into local credit counseling services or financial literacy programs. There are also lots of free online tools and resources that can help you create a budget, manage debt, and track your spending.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this economic talk. But I guess the key takeaway is that taking even small practical steps can make a big difference.
You got it. And remember, knowledge is only valuable when applied. What we're discussing today isn't meant to scare you, but to empower you. By understanding the forces at play in the economy, you can make informed choices that protect your financial well-being, no matter what the future holds.
Yeah, it's a great way to frame it. We're not just doom scrolling here. We're trying to be proactive and informed.
Yeah.
And speaking of information, the video also mentions something about the unemployment rate going up.
Right. It points out that the unemployment rate has increased from 3.4% to 4.3% over the past year.
That doesn't seem like a huge jump.
It might not seem like a lot, but historically, once unemployment starts to rise, it can kind of gain momentum and lead to a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wait, what does that even mean? Like unemployment causes more unemployment?
In a way, yeah. When people lose their jobs, they tend to cut back on spending, which can lead to businesses struggling and ultimately laying off more workers. It becomes a vicious cycle that can be hard to break.
Oh, wow. Okay. So basically, even a small increase in unemployment can have this ripple effect throughout the whole economy.
Exactly, and it ties back to what we were discussing earlier about Walmart's success. While it might seem like a positive sign on the surface, it's actually a reflection of the struggles many consumers are facing. They're seeking out the most affordable options because they're feeling the pinch of inflation and economic uncertainty.
So it's like, yay, Walmart is doing great. But the underlying reasons might not be so great after all.
Precisely. And it just reinforces the importance of looking beyond the headlines and really understanding the nuances of what's driving economic trends.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of potential risks and warning signs. But is there anything positive to take away from all this? Any reason for optimism?
That's a good question. And it's one the video encourages viewers to consider. While there are definitely challenges ahead, there are also opportunities. For example, innovative businesses that can adapt to the changing needs and behaviors of consumers might actually thrive in this environment.
So it's like instead of just focusing on surviving, we should also be thinking about how to thrive, how to turn these challenges into opportunities.
Exactly. Disruption often leads to innovation. Maybe this economic shift will pave the way for new solutions, new approaches, and new ways of doing business.
That's a good point. Sometimes you have to shake things up to make progress. But even with that positive spin, I have to admit I'm still feeling a little overwhelmed by everything we've discussed today. It's a lot to process.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in. But remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about the forces at play in the economy, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and navigate the challenges ahead.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Mhm.
So what's next on our deep dive agenda? Where do we go from here?
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll recap the key takeaways from this YouTube video, and most importantly, discuss some actionable steps you can take to protect yourself and your finances in these uncertain economic times. Stay tuned.
Okay, welcome back to the show, everybody. So we just spent the last almost hour or so talking about some pretty intense economic stuff, from Walmart's success to those kind of scary parallels to 2008 and the housing market craziness. It's a lot.
It is a lot to process, for sure. But remember, the whole point of this isn't to freak anyone out. It's to help you understand what's going on so you can make smart decisions.
Right, exactly. So instead of just dwelling on the negatives, let's talk about what we can actually do about all this. What are some practical takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah, good question. I mean, knowledge is great, but it's only useful if you can actually put it into practice right.
Totally.
So I think the biggest takeaway from everything we've talked about today is that economic uncertainty is like the new normal. We can't predict the future, but we can be prepared for whatever happens.
Okay, that makes sense. But what does being prepared actually look like in real life?
Mm.
Especially when so many people are already struggling to make ends meet, you know?
Well, it starts with taking a good hard look at your own finances. Like, are you feeling the pinch of inflation? Could you handle a sudden job loss or a major unexpected expense? These are tough questions, but it's important to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I get that. It's so much easier to just kind of ignore those scary possibilities and hope everything works out.
I know it is. But trust me, burying your head in the sand is not a good financial strategy.
Definitely not.
The better approach is to face those fears head on and make a plan. And honestly, even small steps can make a huge difference.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, well, one of the most important things is to build up an emergency fund. Even if you can only save like 20 bucks a month or something, having that little cushion can really help if you hit a rough patch.
That makes sense. But let's be real, for a lot of people, even saving a few bucks a month feels impossible right now. What advice do you have for folks who are already living paycheck to paycheck?
There's help out there. Don't be afraid to reach out to local credit counseling services or look into financial literacy programs. They can help you create a budget that works for your situation and maybe even negotiate with creditors if you're having trouble with debt.
Right, and there are probably tons of online resources too, right?
Yeah, totally. There are websites and apps that can help you track your spending, create a budget, and even find ways to lower your bills. It's pretty amazing what's available these days.
That's good to know. It's like, even if the overall economy feels totally out of control, there are still things you can do to take charge of your own finances.
Absolutely. And remember, the more you know, the better equipped you are to make smart decisions. That's why we do the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess the key takeaway is don't panic, but also don't be complacent. Be informed, be proactive, and take control of your own financial future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We covered a lot of ground, explored some pretty intense economic trends, and I hope you all feel a little more informed and maybe even a little empowered to take charge of your own finances.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, economic cycles are like waves. They're ups and downs, but the key is to learn how to ride them out.
I love that analogy. So thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.